So I actually was in college a very long time. I have 2 degrees. My first degree was actually sociology, and then I have a degree in elementary education. But the whole time, reading was my minor. So across all those years in college, I was getting a lot of instruction on how to teach reading. So much, in fact, that when I graduated with my elementary education degree, I already had my reading endorsement. The issue was I started teaching first grade, and I also started teaching at a time when I feel very fortunate to have started teaching this time because the National Reading Panel had just published their meta-analysis. And maybe perhaps because of my sociology background, I had sort of a propensity towards research anyway. So I noticed pretty quickly that no matter how well I thought I was prepared to teach reading, when I started teaching those adorable first graders, they loved reading and I could instill that passion. But I realized if they can't be independent with it, if they can't actually decode the words on the page, then that passion is going to die out. That fire is going to dim. And truly, I saw that with some of my students. By January, if they weren't decoding words on their own, they were kind of defeated about it. So I started really searching, and I knew that that was a weakness in my teaching. But I went to the National Reading Panel as a resource because I feel like we can rely on good scientific research. And that was an analysis of many research studies, quality research studies. And so what I learned from the National Reading Panel really guided me to Reading Horizons. I didn't find Reading Horizons right away. And I have to tell you, I am not a program kind of person. I really don't think there's a program out there that will ever replace the teacher or that will ever be perfect because we all have different students and we have different needs. So I made a list of things that research said worked well for students when we're talking specifically about decoding instruction. And there were all kinds of things on that list I noticed. Multisensory instruction seemed to make a great difference, that it had to be explicit and systematic and sequential. And there were a lot of things that helped guide my search, but I wasn't finding anything. And so I started creating content based on what the research said, which was exhausting. And to tell you the truth, I felt like I lived at the school because it took so much time to do that. And then actually I was at a training one day. I was becoming certified as a trainer in another program, and somebody just very flippantly mentioned Reading Horizons. And so I went on the internet and I found them, and I started saying, okay, well, I'm going to check it out and see what we see. And honestly, the checklist that I had created, boxes were being checked off, especially more than anything else I'd looked at. And I mean, I'd looked at every phonics program out there. The more I started looking into Reading Horizons, the more I realized, oh my goodness, this fills so much of the need. So after we found Reading Horizons and we saw some progress with the students that we just piloted it with, as luck would have it and as things usually go, my role in the school changed. So I was no longer a first grade teacher. I became the literacy coach in the school. And in truth, I didn't really want that job yet. I felt like when I grow up, I'll do that, but not right now. So my principal was so awesome, and she was very supportive. And I gave her conditions. I said, yeah, I will do the job if. And there really were only 2 conditions. One was that she would let me go back to the classroom whenever I wanted to. And then the second thing was that we could institute phonics instruction consistently from kindergarten through 2nd grade in our school. And the reason I requested that was because of what I'd read in the National Reading Panel research, that type of instruction is most effectively taught across those grade levels. And I realized if we're providing every student with that foundation, then our referrals to special ed, our referrals to Tier 2, all those could be cut down if we're providing quality instruction, especially at those grade levels, because that's when it's critical. The way the brain is developing, the way language develops, that is the time to give every student that solid foundation. And we saw a lot of progress, so many great things. And then we opened a new school. So about that time, our State Office of Education approached us and said, we want to fund a 3-year study on this method. So we're going to take your school, we're going to compare it to another school in the state that's very similar, and for 3 years, we're going to track your progress. So we had a lot of challenges going into that study. We were opening a brand new school, so we had a whole new faculty. The other thing is we had a very young faculty, so a lot of our teachers only had from 1 to 5 years of teaching experience. But as a literacy coach and someone who kind of takes a step back and you're monitoring the progress of every student in the school, it was amazing what we started to see. And students, I think the biggest thing for me eventually was, at first my concern was, okay, are the teachers, are they trained well? Are they teaching it? Do they have what they need to teach it well? Do they have time? Teachers have so many other things to consider. But eventually, what I started noticing was that the students were really showing signs of being independent with literacy. One story I love to tell is that it was about October of the year, and we magically had extra funds for another reading aid, which we weren't anticipating. And so she showed up one day and said, okay, I'm ready to start. And I thought, oh, I haven't had time to train her. And I really didn't have time that day. So I said, okay, go to the literacy lab and just watch our technicians, which was our tier 2 and tier 3 setting. And I said, just write down any questions you have. I will talk with you about it. And we, of course, Reading Horizons has an online workshop. So I was going to put her on that to get her more familiar with the method later. But in that moment, I wanted her to see what happened in that reading setting. So at the end of her time that day, at the end of her shift, she came to me and I said, do you have any questions? She said, well, everything just went really smoothly. I just have one question. And she seemed so confused. And she said, so my big question coming into this was, what do I do when a kid gets stuck on a word? She apparently felt like she didn't have any skills to deal with that. And so she said, I was watching for that. And I said, and what did you see? And she said, I saw them slide the student a whiteboard. The students wrote down the word they were struggling with, put some markings on it, and then they knew the word. And so she said the teacher didn't even have to help in most cases. And she was really puzzled, like, what are those markings? What are they doing? How are they figuring those things out? And so for me, that was a moment I was able to say, yeah, that's our excellent phonics program. and again, a witness that students are becoming really independent with it. Another fun thing was that we'd get some phone calls from parents from time to time after we started teaching the method. And they would say, I would like to refer my students to the gifted and talented program. And most times the parents would say, well, because my first grader was teaching my 8th grader about murmur diphthongs. How did they? Again, we had to say that was just our really good phonics program and the instruction that your student is getting. So there was that. I think about one encounter specifically. A 3rd grade teacher asked me to come and observe her guided reading group. And I came into the classroom a little bit early, so I was just sitting down and waiting for her to finish up with the group she had. Well, she had a 3rd grade student that had been in our school from 1st grade through now 3rd. And so she'd received all of the Reading Horizons instruction. And the 3rd grade teacher was also teaching it, but she was new to 3rd grade. She previously taught kindergarten for years. And so even in the sequence, she only got to a certain point. So in their guided reading group, the word fire came up. And they just learned about murmur diphthongs. So one of the students made the comment, but isn't IR a murmur diphthong? How do we know that word doesn't say fur? And the teacher turned to me with like the deer in the headlights look, like, I haven't taught this yet. Help. But before I could even respond, this little girl got up, took the marker from the teacher and said, because this word follows phonetic skill 4. And she even, just very eloquently described it to her whole group of peers. And I saw that often. The discussions you see with students about it during dictation, the teacher doesn't have to do all the teaching. It was just amazing. And I think that's part of what really fueled my passion for Reading Horizons. So then the company actually approached me and wondered if I would come full time. It was about the time that they were creating Discovery. So they wanted input and they wanted, a lot of help with that in the way of a teacher's perspective and of course someone who'd been implementing the method for, at that point, I think it was about 5 to 6 years that we've been implementing it. And so initially, I didn't even consider it. I was like, no, why would I leave teaching? But then as I started thinking about it and realizing, you know, this company has been so good to listen to teachers and really to absorb their input. I mean, there's a lot of things that have changed based on teacher input. And I felt like it would almost be the responsible thing to do, to be able to do that. And I was at a point in my career where I was thinking, what next? And so I thought, why not? I'll give it a try. I'll try it for a year or so. And then, what are we on, like 5 years now, at least? But yeah, it's been a really good journey. Now it's cool for me. Sorry. Now it's really cool for me to see when I visit schools or I observe teachers teaching in any setting. I mean, I can say this. I've trained teachers from Alaska to New York City, and I've seen it implemented in a lot of different ways. And I think even though I'm not on the front lines, so to speak, or in the classroom every day and seeing those light bulbs on a daily basis, I see the effect that what we're doing is having. And I get really excited to think that just the difference we can make. I mean, sometimes it feels like the ball is very slowly rolling, but I think we're going to pick up speed. And really, I love that this company has the passion and the vision to make a difference and not just to sell stuff. You know, that makes the world of difference. As an educator, I would not be here if that were the focus. I certainly wouldn't have lasted 5 years. So it is really great to know that even though they are a company, they do provide products for teachers. I mean, if you want to put it on that sterile of a level, but really what drives that in the design and the implementation is that passion to make a difference and to provide students with a good foundation. So hopefully in the future, we don't have to, there won't be such a need, I should say, to provide all the intervention that we have to right now at any level. Although we're happy to do it, we know it makes a big difference. But yeah, so that's pretty much my Reading Horizons journey with tears. Dang it.